listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians. Welcome to the final boot camp. And today we're going to look at 3 very quick and easy methods that you can use to feel better in the saddle. We've mentioned some of these before, but not necessarily all on the same episode. And I'm going to reiterate the fact that they need practice. So the first one is the easiest one. And this is for when you feel bad, when you have intrusive thoughts inside your head, when you've got pictures coming to you, whether that's mini videos or still pictures inside your head. It doesn't matter. It's playing out an automatic habit, and it's almost like, listening to the radio, that this is automatic. You don't have any control over the songs that are played, and you're just listening, and sometimes you like the song and sometimes you really don't. But we always have the control. You can turn this down and you can turn the radio off. So for all of these ways that fear comes to us, whether it's pictures or words inside our head or it's feelings, you can turn them off. So the easiest way is simply to use the word stop very loudly and very firmly. Stop. And what usually happens, if you're anything like me, is that the pictures or the words or the feelings start to pop up again. And so you say stop again. And it's a little bit like having a naughty child or a naughty dog or whatever it might be, naughty horse, and saying to them, stop, so that they don't do it. And if they, as children and animals tend to do, they kind of go back and have. So as soon as the feelings just start, or the pictures, or the intrusive thoughts and the inner critic, you get in there quickly and you say stop, and you do it repeatedly. And you do it for all kinds of things, not just for riding, but you do it for all walks of life. You do it when you're thinking about work, when you're thinking about something at home, when you're beating yourself up about something, when you're complaining about something. You use it repetitively, so this becomes a new habit. The second one is to use when you have anticipatory nerves. So maybe the ride isn't for 24 hours. Maybe it's not till next week. Maybe it's in the next hour. But you're projecting yourself into the future, and you're projecting yourself in that way, in a catastrophic way. Or maybe you don't even really clearly know what you're worried about. You're just worried. And sometimes it's a fear of fear. Sometimes it's that we are anticipating some unknown event occurring, but what we're actually anxious about is not the ride, it's the fear that we will become frightened. And that's a strange one, isn't it? It's a fear that we will become frightened when we ride. And so this little technique is really useful. And again, it needs repetition. Repeat it for different areas of life. Repeat it each time that fear bobs up again. And for this, you project yourself to the ride, but now go 15 minutes after the ride. So the ride is completely finished. Project yourself into that time point. So very often we project ourselves into the start of the ride, the middle of the ride, or something that we would find challenging in the ride. But I want you to project yourself further into the future, 15 minutes after the ride has completely finished. And you think about how you feel 15 minutes afterwards. So you're dismounted, maybe your horse is back in the stable, back in the field, maybe you're untacking, or whatever you're doing 15 minutes later. And you imagine that this event has gone totally successfully by your measure of your realistic expectation, and you've met the challenge. And all we're doing here is ridding ourselves of anxiety. We're not saying that this will definitely unfold in this way, but in projecting that 15 minutes after the event, we will feel absolutely fantastic. Maybe if you're a visual person, you could see what you would be seeing. If you're an auditory person, it's what you might be saying to yourself or other people might be saying. And if you're very much a feelings person, then it's how you would be feeling. And when you do that, something very curious happens. Because your mind doesn't see the point of creating anxiety about an event that you think, or you've just told it, is going to be successful, then the anxiety drops. And it drops like a lead weight. Boom, it's gone. So it's not gradual. It's quite nice. It just goes. And if it doesn't go for you, you need to just spend a little bit more time on thinking about that 15 minutes after the successful ride and really imagining it 100% successfully. Maybe you've got to 80% successful or 90 or 95%, but we need to step over the mark and really imagine it, because we can do anything in our imagination, really imagine it happening 100% successfully. And do it often. Do it each and every time that the nerves start to just bubble up again. And maybe it's not proper nerves, maybe it's just a fleeting thought or a fleeting feeling. Do it and keep repeating it, and repeat it even on events that you're okay about, so that you get into the practice of using this little technique. And the third and final technique that I want to tell you about is one of my favourites. Once again, it takes practice, but with practice you really reap the rewards. And this is to use something called Hakalau, or peripheral vision. So Hakalau is when you look upwards. Obviously you're not on the horse when you're doing this. You're practicing at home off the horse. You're not driving or anything like that, but you look upwards. So it's not that you tilt your head back, but that you raise your eyes and you pick a spot and you focus in on that spot. And this just gives your mind that knowledge that this is focus vision. And this is almost, well, it fully is the entire opposite of what we want. But you focus in, gives you a level of concentration, almost hyper focus on that spot. And then you start to relax your vision so that you go wider and wider and wider, but your eyes are still gazing at the spot, which obviously is going to be rather blurred as we do this. And you go as wide as you can comfortably go, and then you see if you can go a little wider. And at that point, you can then lower your eyes so that you're looking directly acrossways at eye level, keeping and maintaining that wide vision. And if you can do that, if you can keep that wide vision, then as a little test, let's see if the vision stays the same, changes, or maybe something happens that to cause your vision to really narrow in. And I'm going to ask you about your next ride or your next competition, and how do you feel? Notice where your eyes go, or your vision goes to. For a lot of people, the majority of people, their vision snaps back to a narrow field. And for a minority, it stays wide. Staying wide is the way that we want to be, because there's something quite fascinating about how our brain is set up, in that when you're in this wide peripheral vision, then you can't hold negative thoughts and negative emotions, and it feels almost like you're in a daydream. It feels quite floaty. and that's the way it's meant to be. It's calming, but unusually, it's not calming to the point where you are completely out of it, but rather you are very alert. So it's quite interesting. You're alert and calm. And obviously this is fabulous for a communication to your horse as well. But it maintains that calmness in you when you keep yourself in that wide vision. So you practice away from the horse, first of all. You practice when you're just at home watching television. You practice when you're doing chores. You practice when you go out for a walk. And then when you can just do it, you look upwards, you find your point, and then you expand your vision wider and wider and wider until you can just go into it. You just say Hakalau to yourself, or you say peripheral vision, and you're in it. You're in real peripheral vision, not 3/4, but real peripheral vision. Then you can start to feel much, much calmer. And you'll know when you're in it because you will feel calmer. And if you still feel a little bit of nervousness or some other negative emotion or negative thoughts are creeping in, that's a good marker for knowing that you can go wider with your vision. And when you go wider with your vision, you cut out those things. So once you've practiced at home and away from the yard, then you can start to do it around the stables, possibly in halt, first of all, progressing then to walk, but in a very safe space. And you may be able to hold it for 30 seconds, or maybe you've got markers. If you were in a school, you could use dressage markers, and you can go between a certain number of markers, or maybe you can do a 20-meter circle, or maybe you can do half a lap or the long side. Challenge yourself to extend this. And then the next time you ride, challenge yourself again to keep in that peripheral vision. And eventually you'll be able to trot and canter, if you do want to trot and canter, in that peripheral vision. You'll be able to use it for jumping, dressage tests. It sharpens up your 3D awareness. So it's really excellent for riders. And you can always bring your vision in momentarily if you need to do, and then extend it out again. So that's a lovely technique. And if you were to choose one of them that you prefer, then that would be fine. Or maybe you could do all three. If you need more tips and tricks, I have a book called The Confident Rider Mindset with lots more in and going into more depth. If you need even more, why not consider a session with an NLP practitioner who knows about equestrianism? And just as a quick plug, if you want to know more about the mind, more about how we set up problems in our minds, how they get sustained and how we get rid of them, I've got a 1-day equestrian NLP workshop on Zoom. It's on the 20th of February until the 31st of January. It's on early bird pricing. So you get a little bit of a discount. It runs from 10 o'clock in the morning until about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, UK time. And if you're a long way from the UK and the time just doesn't work out for you, or maybe you've got to work that day, then you can always sign up for the workshop and receive the recording. So if you go into my website, I'll put it down in the description box. It would be fabulous to see you, and we can chat a little bit more about confidence levels and the mindset problems that equestrians create for themselves. Thanks ever so much for listening. Next time we have a fabulous guest, a sports mindset coach who's going to give us more tips and tell us more about their story. Take care, and I'll see you again really soon.